Kev Nash, The Keith Byers Show, Talking Out Loud with Sully, and more. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com. We're live. We're local. We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
All right, happy Friday. Welcome in. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. I hope everyone is ramped up and geared up for the 3-day weekend coming up, Labor Day weekend. Let's get through this next 3 hours, because the good news is our bosses emailed everybody here and said, guys, for all your hard work and heading into the holiday weekend, you guys can leave at 1 o'clock. And me and Kev are like, that's us. Oh, wait, accept us. Fair enough. But, hey, if there's any other job that we would have to be forced to do while everyone else has been given the day off, I guess talking sports isn't the worst job.
For us.
Yeah, I know. First world problems. There you go. But we welcome you in again. Week 3 of the high school football season officially kicks off tonight, and College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and myself will be bringing you the Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week. CJ, the Eagles on the road taking on the Fairmont Firebirds, and we have that coming up for you tonight. 7 o'clock, the kickoff. Keith Byers and I bringing you the call. I'm really jacked about that. CJ played a really tough game against Moeller. They're 1-1 on the season, but CJ's really good, and they proved that by hanging in there with Moeller. I mean, that game could have gone either way, and they're going up against an undefeated Fairmont team here tonight. Fairmont, again, they opened up with Alter. They won the Battle of Kettering. Then they had that huge win there, and then a 35-0 shutout win over Trotwood in week 2. And then that brings us here to this week 3 matchup as they take on CJ, the Eagles, coming up later on tonight, 7 o'clock, the Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week. But let's talk about the game of the night from last night. The Ohio State Buckeyes 1-0 to start the season. And I don't think that's the surprise to anybody, but I will say, man, that was so like Indiana. That was just like the Indiana Thursday night game from years ago, where everybody at halftime was already saying, well, this is going to be a long season. And then the second half, the big plays were made defensively, even though they still kind of got beat up. We'll talk about that defense coming up here in just a moment. But I will say this, Kev, you and I talked at length yesterday about the importance of watching the games and not just looking at the box score. If you just looked at the box score, CJ Stroud completed 13 of his 22 passes, 294 yards. He threw 4 touchdowns. He did throw a pick. Box score watching says, man, he played out of his mind last night. But if you watch the game, I'm not even criticizing the kid. I'm telling you right now, what you saw was a first-year starter on the road at night against a Big Ten opponent. All eyes on him. The pressure on him, replacing Justin Fields. I think CJ Stroud, if people who are ripping him today, and I've seen it across the board, I'm not even ripping him. I'm not even going to be critical. For those of you who think CJ Stroud played poorly last night, if a poor game for CJ Stroud is a game where he throws nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, I will gladly take a CJ Stroud bad game like that every night of the week. And you know what? Good for him. What I loved last night, Kev, was the fact that he struggled, and the fact that halftime hit, and that he looked like he had grown by a whole season coming out of the halftime.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the way he looked more poised and confident in the pocket in the second half, he was making plays. He was making some big throws. Yes, he has playmakers around him. But again, Ohio State 45-31 over Minnesota. All eyes are on the quarterback. All the talk was on him. I'm concerned about the defense for Ohio State. That was our big question heading into last night, along with the play of CJ Stroud. But Kev, I can't say enough about CJ Stroud. He looked like a first-year quarterback making his debut on the road at night on a Thursday at that. He did not look like a quarterback that got to, debut against Florida Atlantic at noon on a Saturday. Okay. Big difference there.
Absolutely not, man. Definitely a tale of two halves for CJ Stroud for sure. First half, 8 of 14, 58 yards, that interception. Second half, 5 of 8, 36 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I was texting, as I'm known to do, with my brother and every other Buckeye fan out there about what's going on in the game. And I guess I just kind of take this stuff for granted because I'm a football nerd and I kind of like see the game, I guess, through a coach's lens, even though I never coached a game of football in my life. But I played a lot of football, a lot of backyard football, played a little bit of high school football, been watching football for a long time. They were doing the safe route early in the game. Well, the first half, lots of swing passes, lots of bubble screens and things of that nature. And Minnesota, they were crashing down on it. So there was no run after catch. They were tackling the Ohio State receivers on those bubble screens and quick passes and everything like that. So what do you do to combat that? You take vertical shots. And that's exactly what Coach Day switched it up to. It's like, okay, y'all gonna do that? Well, we're just gonna do this instead. And his receivers, meaning Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, got behind the defense on over routes and crosser routes, and they equal touchdowns. Big plays happened because they switched up what they were doing because they made an adjustment at halftime. Now, obviously, you don't want to wait till halftime to make adjustments. You obviously want to make those adjustments in game as things are happening. But to Coach Day's credit, he adjusted, and to CJ Stroud's credit, he executed what Coach called and had a lot of big plays. And I mean, the whole offense was big plays. I mean, the first touchdown of the game, Byron Williams, he takes it 71 yards, and I believe every other touchdown was like over 35 yards. So it was a litany of big plays from the Ohio State offense, and I can't wait for you to bring up the defense. I can't wait. I'm locked and loaded about that defense.
Again, the final score, Ohio State 1-0, their win over Minnesota, 45-31. CJ Stroud, what a debut for him. 294 yards on 13-22 passing, along with 4 touchdowns and an interception. That interception, too, by the way, wasn't it the Olave got his hand on it? Yeah, so it was a bad pass that led to it. So, but whatever. Look, first-year player, first-time starter for the Buckeyes. Like I said, Justin Fields, when everyone, and it was amazing to me because I kept bringing up the comparisons too, but it's amazing to me the people that said, well, Justin Fields was locked in his debut. Again, Florida Atlantic right. At noon on a Saturday at the Shoe. It just, when you play at home, you're more comfortable. When you play at noon, when the sun's out and, you know, it's a day game, it's just more relaxing. It's more, look, bottom line is this. My favorite part was I loved actually that CJ Stroud looked rough. Mm-hmm. You know why? Because then when you compare it to what he looked like at the end of the game, what that shows me is that the kid got settled in. He got comfortable. He got locked in. And I think that was perfect for him. I'm actually really glad he struggled and he showed the ability, the mental toughness to be able to fight through those struggles and regather himself. Some players, they crumble and they can't come out of that shell once they've been thumped in the nose a little bit. Good for him for coming out and answer, you know, and basically answering to the questions that were, you know, being thrown about him. So good for him. I think that confidence he's going to take into that Oregon game next week. That's going to be key. Ohio State's going to score. They're going to score a lot of points. Mm-hmm. They put 45 up last night, and it felt like they played poorly offensively, and they did not. Their run game was on point. Offensive line was solid. You know, quarterback C.J. Stroud, 4 touchdowns, 300, you know, just 6 yards short of 300 passing yards. I'll take that. And it was big plays from the guys you figured. Garrett Wilson, Olave. I mean, you had the run game, of course, and it wasn't the running backs you thought. Garrett Wilson, or I'm sorry, when you look at, you know, the fact that we talked so much about TreVeyon Henderson, he was kind of a non-factor a little bit. That's not a dig at him, but, I mean, that just shows the depth at running back. We had no clue who to expect to be the star. We do know this, though, that you had the veteran experience running back, of course, and he just did not really kind of take off. I think he will do a great job complimenting these young running backs, whether it's TreVeyon Henderson, whether it's Williams or whoever. I think that the Buckeyes' depth at running back is just so impressive. And with that depth at wide receiver and with C.J. Stroud coming to his own, if that's the worst C.J. Stroud we see all year, the rest of the Big Ten's in trouble. Let's just put it that way, including Oregon next week. But I'm just going to say this. The defense, Kev, your thoughts?
Oh, my goodness. Now, I'll say this first. They were out their starting cornerbacks. Seven Banks is dealing with a knee injury. He didn't play last night. Cam Brown, who is recovering from an Achilles injury last year that he suffered in the Penn State game, he didn't play last night. So, okay, you're without your 2 starting cornerbacks. Well, guess what? The true freshman cornerback, Burks, played good. The redshirt freshman on the other side, he played good football as well. The veterans on the team did not play well. Taraja Mitchell did not play well. Dallas Gant did not play well. The only guy that I say played well of the linebackers was Cody Simon. And I do appreciate what, they were doing. They were playing a lot of guys. And they're playing a lot of guys to try to find out who meshes well with who.
No preseason.
Yeah, there's none of that. So I know that Cody Simon, he looked good. He looked intense. He was attacking downhill. And the run fits were just not there from the linebackers. I saw Zach Harrison had the sack, fumble, and everything like that. Splash play. I appreciate that. But outside of that splash play, I don't really remember them getting any pressure on the quarterback, like at all. And I know they're doing the little RPOs and everything like that. And the running game for Minnesota was definitely there for sure. I respect it. But there was just no pressure on the quarterback ever outside of that one play. And I got to give it up to Haskell Garrett. He might be one of the most athletic people I've ever seen in my life, because last year he had a pick six, and this year he had a scoop and score for 30, 40 yards. So props to him. But the defense, man, they got a lot of work to do. And thank goodness it's a long season, because you can get better. As much as I'm going to bang on them right now, you can get better throughout the season. Who would have thought Ohio State would have won the national championship in the year JT Barrett started the year out, and we had to have that big play against Army in week 1. The offense grew from week 1 to winning the national championship. So this defense can grow, and they're going to have to if they're going to go to the places we think they're going to go, because if the defense plays like that, and we're going to be going to Indiana, and we're going to be playing Penn State, who seems to be going to be improved on offense, looks like we're going to be in shootouts. And in shootouts, things can go either way. So the defense has to get better, and mainly the linebackers.
Ohio State 45, Minnesota 31. And again, the comments, not really so much in this direct chat feed right here, but just, following the comments and the reaction to the game, it's how poorly Ohio State played offensively. Once again, if a poor game for Ohio State is 45 points, if a poor offensive game is a quarterback throwing 4 touchdowns and nearly 300 passing yards, if a poor game is 200 yards rushing on the ground, including Mayon Williams, 9 carries, 125 yards and a touchdown, if that's poor, if that's a poor offensive performance, I'll take that. If that's the worst offensive performance of the year we see from Ohio State, I will take that. Last night, if there's anything to feel good about, it was the growth of CJ Stroud from one half to the next. My favorite thing was the worst part about the game was CJ Stroud's struggles in the get-go, but I love that feel. I love the way the game ended. You just felt good about CJ Stroud. I love watching guys who don't get it at first and then get it, and then you see the improvement. You just feel it's a good feel-good story, and that's what I felt last night was for Ohio State. And they learn lessons. When you can learn lessons while winning, that's always a good thing, because some teams have to take the bumps and bruises that come with the loss. And if Ohio State had made, they learned some lessons last night while still coming away with a double-digit 2-possession win, I'll take that any day of the week. But no, the defense was concerning. Now, last year, here's what's concerning, Kev. Last year, we talked about how teams diced up the Buckeyes defense, and I wasn't really impressed with the secondary last night. I thought they made some boneheaded plays. You talked about Gant. I mean, the one where he got called for the pass interference and he threw his hands up. I'm like, you were grabbing him by the shoulders and pulling him down before the ball was even there, and you had the nerve to do the LeBron, put your hands in the air like, what I do? Like, that drives me nuts. We've been hearing about this for Kerry Coombs for a while, defensive coordinator, but even going back to his time before he left, when Urban was here, people criticize the way their defensive backs, they never turn to look at the ball. They are taught to look at the eyes of the wide receiver and to basically play their reaction. Basically, if you see the receiver start to put his hands up, or if you look at their eyes and their eyes are starting to get big as that ball's getting closer, you're more so playing anticipation type defense down the field like that. Because if you're constantly, and I see both sides of this argument, if you are stopping to turn to look at the ball, your speed is slowing down and you're allowing allowing that separation from the receiver. So some people get mad when the DBs do not stop and turn to look at the ball. Well, if you're running full speed, and we know the speed of these secondary guys for Ohio State, they're top notch. If they're running full speed and they have to stop to turn around, you're now slowing down. And half the time you're running full speed with that receiver.
Right.
You don't want that receiver to create separation and get past you. So they are taught to read the eyes and to read the body language of the receiver. So I can defend them on that. But they didn't get torched last night as much as people think. It was the run game for Minnesota. Ibrahim, if I'm saying his name right,
Yep.
Ibrahim, 30 carries. Okay, Minnesota, good for them and good for PJ Fleck. I felt good about Minnesota last night. That wasn't a typical Minnesota team. That was a good, solid Minnesota team. They didn't even have their best receiver last night. They're going to continue to get better as well. So keep an eye on them. I think with a loss like that, they might crack the top 25. I know that sounds really foolish. Maybe not this upcoming rankings, but I think all eyes will be on Minnesota. They're a solid team. But Abraham, 30 carries, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns. Linebackers, he was bursting through that line too. The offensive line for Minnesota was jumping off the ball, and they were pushing them back, creating lanes. So good for Minnesota. That was a good approach on their part. But, man, there's a lot of good running backs in the Big Ten as well. And Ohio State's, they're going to have to find a way, especially with Oregon coming up. They're going to be a very well-balanced team. That offensive line's pretty solid. If Minnesota's offensive line got that push off the ball, Ohio State's in trouble come this Saturday with Oregon's offensive line. So that's what I'm really concerned about. The passing game that Minnesota had, it wasn't the greatest.
Right.
The secondary made some mistakes, but I just thought that Abraham, of those 30 carries, 163 yards, he averaged 5.5 yards a carry. There was so many times where he wasn't touched for the first 7, 8, yards of the drive. So I'm interested to see how Ohio State grows there against the run, because we've always known that they've been struggling against the pass over the last couple of years, but now the run, if you add the struggles with the pass game and against the run, it can be a long season. You talked about the shootouts. Sure, it's exciting. It doesn't feel as exciting when you're in shootouts with bad football teams, though. The Buckeyes have to get better defensively, and it starts up front.
Absolutely, and want to send out thoughts and prayers to what is his name? I can't pronounce
Ibrahim.
Lots of reports about that possibly being a torn Achilles. And
you saw that? It looked like it shriveled up, and it reminded me of that Kobe Bryant game where
Kevin Durant.
Where you saw it just kind of ravel up on the back of his leg. It was like, man, excuse me, that was disappointing though, seeing him go out like that.
Yeah, you don't want to ever see somebody go out like that, especially a guy that's in a money year and everything like that, trying to make a name for himself. And he was definitely making a name for himself, because on draft night, that was the film that they were going to be showing. Like, look what he did against Ohio State defense and everything like that. So thoughts and prayers out to him. Hopefully he gets a full recovery and able to play the rest of his senior season. But as far as the Buckeyes defense is concerned, man, Kerry Coombs, I know a lot of people talk about the guys not looking back for the ball and everything like that, but I think about it like this sometimes. Like, we can't call ourselves DBU, and he's the guy that coached the DBs to get drafted in the first round, and we're talking about like, oh, we're DBU. Well, he's partially responsible for us becoming DBU because of the guys that he coached that way. So is it the communication towards the guys that they're not taking in the information and executing it on the field? I don't think the DBs played bad. Yeah, they got a little grabby and got a couple pass interferences, but that's to be expected when you got a true freshman and a redshirt freshman out there. Those type of things. I'm just more concerned about the guys that have been in the program for years and years and years. And I'm talking about the linebackers. I'm talking about Taraji Mitchell. I'm talking about Dallas Gant. That's the guys that I'm talking about. Those guys that have been in the program that haven't been able to crack the lineup until their junior and senior year. This is your time to shine. This is the time for you to, make a name for yourself, and you're not making a name for yourself because you're making the wrong steps. You're reading the defense wrong. They're out there busting out the Wildcat like it's the Miami Dolphins with Ronnie Brown again. Like, yo, you don't know how to stop the Wildcat or even the proper run fit. It's one thing to get ran over. Like, okay, man, that dude's a bowling ball. He ran you over. But, like, you're not in the right space. You're not in the right gap. So whatever is going on in the locker room and making adjustments to what's going on in the classroom version of football and practice and everything like that, you're not taking that information in. You're not learning how to read the gaps. You have to read the gaps. You have to be in a proper gap to be able to stop the play. Like I said before, if you get ran over, okay, hey man, he just ran you over. It happens. It's football. But if you're not even there to get ran over, that's a bigger problem.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Again, your final from last night: Ohio State 45, Minnesota 31. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. Head to Facebook, search the Justin Kinner Show. That's where you can watch us live weekdays from 3 to 6 and be a part of the conversation. Let your opinions be heard, and we'll read them and pull them into the show and interact with you that way. Or you can give us a call at 518-1410, 518-1410. Give Kev a call, and we'll get you on the show, and we'll get this. We'll get your guys' takes on this. Overall, it was a good game last night because you got to see the struggles, but you got to see them get better as the game went on. If the second half would have mirrored the first half, I would not be feeling good sitting here today. But I love what we saw in the second half. It was very similar to 5 years ago, when Ohio State played at Indiana on a Thursday night. It was the same thing. Indiana played them close. We talked about that yesterday, about what to expect. And everyone was, ticked off and going to social media. The sky was falling, and then they won by 20 plus points. And that was J.K. Dobbins' debut. We rushed for 180 plus yards. I mean, it's very similar to last night as far as that goes. Let's go to the social media feed. Dennis Train on YouTube, Kev, says, "Go Buckeyes. It's great to be 1-0.
Yes, sir.
Beat the Ducks." And that's what's up next for Ohio State to beat the Ducks. Oregon coming up, a noon kickoff, because everyone knows primetime games are played at noon under the lights, and the light being the sun. So there you go. I'm still salty about that, by the way.
You sure? You sure you saw it? But I think you would like it, considering last night.
Ron Howard, yeah, no kidding. Ron Howard with his negativity. He says Ohio State won't make the playoffs with that D. Gophers running back diced them for $168. That's pathetic. Yeah. It wasn't a good performance. If that's week 5, week 6, Ron, I'd be matching your concern and your negativity. But today, not the best tone setter. But most teams open up with a Miami of Ohio. I don't know why I beat up on them. I really
They're local too, man.
I don't mean to do that.
Do the Ohio Bobcats. Do Kent. Do
let's do the Ohio Bobcats. I don't like anyone that's played at the Ohio Bobcats, so we're going to use the Ohio Bobcats. It is so. Most teams open up with bad teams like the Ohio Bobcats. Okay, Minnesota, make your jokes about where they rank within the Big Ten from on a normal year, but PJ Fleck, Minnesota, that's a good mid-tier Big Ten team that will challenge you if you have deficiencies, and that's what happened last night. But the overall talent, just too much. In fact, we had ESPN's Adam Rittenberg on. He said the same thing. He anticipated Minnesota to play them tough and make it difficult, but he said overall the talent of Ohio State would just be too much, and that's ultimately what happened. They were just too much. Larry Weaver on Facebook says Stroud was too hyped that first half. Yes, I mean, a lot of those passes, Kev, a lot of overthrows. Oh, if I would let Larry finish his statement here. I interrupt his Facebook post like I interrupt your analysis on the show. So Larry Weaver says Stroud was too hyped that first half. A lot of his passes were overthrown. That's what caused the interception with the Olave one we talked about. He finally caught his breath the second half, and I don't think he had any overthrows. I think he had, regardless, I think he had one, but you're going to have that. Trevor Lawrence had overthrows when he was in college. So did Tua and guys like that. It's just about seeing the growth from one half to the next. So Larry, I agree with you on that. Matt on YouTube says Ohio State had 7 players start last night who have never taken a snap before. So we're giving CJ Stroud the benefit of the doubt. Matt brings up a good point. The 7 players on defense, you got to keep that in mind too. You talked about the new players making big plays. It was the veterans who were not making the greatest of plays. Matt on YouTube also says the way Minnesota ran last night, Ohio State will not see that all year. No other team is going to go out there with 7 offensive linemen and 2 tight ends and run the pistol.
Wisconsin.
By the way, that's not how Minnesota started. Good for PJ Fleck. He saw something because their quarterback too, it was driving me crazy. And the group of guys I was watching the game with, we're screaming at the TV we weren't rooting for Minnesota by any means. But Tanner Morgan, all he had to do,
keep it,
tuck the ball and run to your right. You would have had 10, 15 yards of carry every damn time. But Ohio State, good for them for knowing no matter what happens, you could throw a fastball right down the middle. He's not swinging at this pitch. We can send everyone up the middle because he is not running to the outsides. And that really kind of was weird because it took away the middle run game for Minnesota as the game went on. I thought that that was strange, but Minnesota did. They changed up their approach as the game went on, and it was all about those adjustments. So good for Minnesota for making those. Ohio State still comes out on top. One more read here, and then we'll take a break before getting back to the rest of your reads on here. Randy Bertholf on YouTube says, cannot agree more. Stroud making his first ever start in primetime on the road. In a factor I forgot to mention, the rain. He did a phenomenal job. That will be great for his confidence against the Ducks. Again, Ohio State, Oregon, 10:30 coverage begins a week from this Saturday, week 2 of the college football season. The Buckeyes 1-0, and that's all that matters. You're listening to the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. We've been reading your comments in the chat section. We'll continue to do that, but let's take your phone calls as well. 518-1410, 518-1410. Buckeyes, did you feel good about what you saw from the offense last night, or were you more focused on some of the deficiencies within the defense? Did you wake up this morning feeling, did the offense play so well that you forgot about the defensive struggles, or was the defense so poor that you don't even care about the offensive success? We'll talk about that on the other side. 518-1410, Facebook, YouTube reactions, as well as your calls when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Mow like a pro with Hustler Turf zero-turn mowers. They engineer their mowers to be maintenance and service friendly for the everyday homeowner, while not sacrificing the build and cut quality they're known for. From the heavy-duty frame to the welded steel deck to their trademark smooth track steering, Hustler Turf zero-turn mowers deliver professional-grade cut quality for a perfectly manicured lawn. Come in to Small Engine Service Pros to see the Hustler difference for yourself today. Small Engine Service Pros, 2030 North Dayton Lakeview Road, Route 235 in New Carlisle.
Now at Menards, save big money in your next project with 11% off everything. Enjoy the fresh air with a new Larson Storm Door with over 400 styles that will match your home and features like a screen-away retractable screen. Larson Storm Doors are all 11% off. Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Good through September 6th. Savings are mail and rebate. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Save big money at Menards.
Maybe now is the time for a new job and a fresh start. Alpha Media Dayton and ESPN 1410 Wing are interviewing for radio account executives. Radio reaches more people than any other medium, and combined with our digital ad products, you will provide clients with effective on-air and online solutions that deliver results. If you consider yourself driven, competitive, have sales experience, and want to work in radio, we need you. To submit your resume, log on to wingam.com and click careers. Alpha Media is an equal opportunity employer.
If you've had a car accident, the first call should be to Blake Maisland.
That's right. With the sun going down a little earlier, with the leaves on the road, with the rain, it just lends itself to more injuries. You just have to remember, you only need one number, and that's the number 4. We are here for you 24 hours a day.
444-4444 or wantmore.com. Your organization will give you an absolute free evaluation.
And we work the case for you for free all the way through unless we win.
You have rooted yourself in Dayton.
Sure. Well, we all are in Dayton together. And when things happen, everybody needs to come together and everybody has something to offer. I'm lucky enough that I went through law school. Everyone in our own firm brings a talent, and we make sure that whatever's necessary for your case to win it, that's what we do.
444-4444 or online at wantmore.com. Attorney Blake Maisland. He's there to help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Angie's List is now Angie. Angie connects you with top home pros who can help with projects big and small. Start your home project at Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says I'm a catch more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Don't miss the ESPN Dayton Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week every Friday night, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and Justin Kinner will have the call all season long. Check out wingam.com for the complete schedule and to stream the games live. All sports, all the time. This is 1410 ESPN Radio.
Justin Kinner, Kev Nash back with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. There is a fire, so Kev has to go put that fire out. So you tagged in, you could tag out, my friend. There you go. Maybe not. 518-1410, 518-1410. That's the number to call in and jump in on the conversation. We'll get to your phone calls coming up here in just a little bit. But back to the Facebook feed we go. So we'll reset here. Ohio State. Last night, there were so many question marks heading in, that it got to a point where I was mainly focused on the offense, of course, with CJ Stroud, because I think we always forget about, like, even in, like, if you think of other sports, like let's use baseball, for example. When your team is active out on the free agent market, are you really sitting there saying, ooh, but I really hope we get some good defensive players? Now, maybe some of you baseball nerds out there are like that, and you're focused on the defense of your team. But if your team's out going getting these big, sexy names, you feel pretty solid about that. Everything's because all you're thinking about is, ooh, that's a power hitter. That's a power hitter. That guy hit for average last year. That guy hit a lot of extra base hits. Man, that guy hits a lot of home runs. Man, I love it. We don't think about what they bring or don't bring to the table defensively until you're a month into the season and your team's ranked at the bottom defensively. And you're like, man, he can't field the ball. What the hell's going on? We only care about the exciting things in sports. And that's, of course, the offense more times than not. When your NFL team in the offseason signs some big name, wide receivers or running backs, or you get that big quarterback, everyone loses their mind. It's very rare if your whole fan base loses their mind over a big defensive pickup. NFL may be a bad example because there are some big name stars football wise on defense, but no one ever thinks in the NBA for their team, oh man, I'm so glad we picked up that shot blocker. Man, we're winning a championship. No, you care about the guy that can score. College football, kind of the same way. I think we knew that the defense might be a little dicey, but we were so worried about what the offense was going to look like. And offensively, they put up 45 points on Minnesota. Offensively, you had a quarterback that nearly threw for 300 yards, just 6 yards short of 300 total passing yards. And you also had a quarterback that threw for 4 touchdowns. One of his throws that was a little bit behind Chris Olave led to an interception. It was in the hand of Olave, kind of got bobbled around, led to a pick. But overall, there's going to be mistakes. And Minnesota is not the typical Minnesota team that we have watched over the years. It's a very athletic team, very stubborn and very disciplined defensively. And they made things difficult for CJ Stroud in his debut. I keep bringing up Justin Fields because for whatever reason, they were obsessed with bringing up Justin Fields' debut last night and comparing it. And you can't do that. For one, CJ Stroud made his debut on a Thursday night on the road, as one of the listeners pointed out earlier, with rain, at a Big Ten opponent, a tough Big Ten opponent at that. More times than not, most teams open up the season usually with a little dink game, a little dink and dunk game, whether it's a team out of the MAC like Miami of Ohio. There, Kev, you happy? I use Miami of Ohio this time and stop beating up, Ohio, the Bobcats. I did beat up on Miami. I'm all over the place. It's a Friday. I'm looking forward to my 3-day weekend. Give me a break. But the point is CJ Stroud was expected to be perfect. He was expected to be the guy right off the bat last night, and he was not. But he was as the game went on, and I loved seeing how he responded. The offense was fine. The defense is the concern. They did give up a lot of yards on the ground. Look, there's not a lot of great running teams that Ohio State plays, but Wisconsin could provide some fits. Penn State's going to try and take advantage of that as they're big up front as well. And I tell you who definitely is keeping an eye on that. It is definitely going to be Oregon coming up 1 week from tomorrow. But back to the Facebook feed we go. If we're going to dive into some of this more reaction from yesterday's game. Brian Hetzel on Facebook says the defense was not good. How much, though, came into play that Minnesota ran 70-some plays to the Bucks 40-some plays? Do you think being tired came into play? And look, that had more to do with the fact that Minnesota dominated the pace of the game. They were able to dictate tempo of that game, mainly because of the fact that they were running so much. If you look at Ohio State, they had 26 carries on the ground. They handed the ball off 26 times. Minnesota handed it off double that. They had 50 carries last night. Both teams ran for about the same amount of yards, though. That's what's interesting about that is Minnesota, they had 20, their running backs got 50 total carries. Ohio State's running backs got 26 total carries. But yet Ohio State finished with 201 total rushing yards compared to 203 total rushing yards for Minnesota. Minnesota was not as efficient on the ground as Ohio State was. As Ohio State 2 yards short of matching the yard total for Minnesota on 24 less carries. But Minnesota, with those 50 carries, they worked the clock. They were in no hurry. They were not playing in the hurry up. They were, continuing to take time off, and they were just trying to make that game end as quick as possible. They had control of it, especially at halftime. Ohio State came out, punched them in the mouth. But yeah, I do think that they got tired. You got to credit PJ Fleck for that too, just for the game plan heading in and taking advantage of what was in front of them. Ron Howard says if that targeting call against the Gophers, he would have been tossed. It's a biased call. Everyone thinks it's a biased call. I thought it was the first game last night in front of fans for Ohio State and Minnesota in over a year. And it was the first game like that for those officials as well. Not defending it too much, but those calls could have gone either way. Doug Toby says, between the two teams, we might have seen 3 of the top 10 running backs in the country. And I could not agree more with that. I do have a lot of questions about TreVeyon Henderson. I'm not going to rush to judgment, but he did have 2 carries for only 15 yards last night. Both of those, averaging about 7.5 yards a carry. But he was that was the one name that everyone was really looking forward to seeing coming into that matchup. But good for Mayan Williams for carrying the running load last night for Ohio State. 9 carries, 125 yards, and a touchdown. And what I also liked in the pass game on top of that, folks, was the fact that the stars did show up. 5 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown from Garrett Wilson. Chris Olave, 4 receptions, 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you have to feel pretty good that the stars showed up, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is when you know that you have your stars who are showing up. Ohio State won last night 45-31, and they got big nights. They got a big night on the ground from the running back in Williams for 125 yards and a score. Their quarterback and C.J. Stroud nearly threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, 2 of the top receivers in the country, they went off for 9 total catches between them for over 200 combined yards, as well as 3 touchdowns. That's what you want to see if you're Ohio State, especially when it comes to the defensive or to the offensive side. Ann Anderson on Facebook says a win is a win is a win. They will get better. I cannot agree more. Like I said, there's a lot to take away from last night that you can be concerned about. But at the end of the day, if that is what your team is considered, if that kind of game is what you consider a bad game for your team, I'll take a 45-point performance every week and consider that a bad week, if you will. How about Robert Miller? Bama fan. He even ends his post with the Roll Tide. He says that the defense is not bad, but yes, they need to be better. The strip and score basically is what won that game. I'm giving Ohio State a grade of a B. He says Roll Tide. Robert taking it a little bit easier on the Buckeyes today. He had some strong things to say about Ohio State yesterday. Keith Tolliver, I feel Minnesota lost this game at the coin toss. Hostile crowd. Why not give the ball to the freshman and let the crowd stay hyped up? Instead, you punt, and immediately the crowd got quieter, and you would have had the ball to start the second half, and you had momentum with the lead and the ball. Very interesting approach there. Kev, fire put out?
Kind of.
You catch your breath? You good? There we go. So I'm bringing you right into the mix as your back. Keith Tolliver brings up a good point that if you're Minnesota, again, the underdog heading into that matchup, although a lot of people did expect them to really give Ohio State some fits, he says he feels that Minnesota lost the game at the coin toss mainly because of that hostile crowd opting to give the ball, opting to, take the ball. They should have given the ball to Ohio State to let that crowd, as ramped up as they were, really put the pressure on C.J. Stroud coming out. Plus, Minnesota would have got the ball back coming out. That's tough, though. Week 1, you're jacked up to be out there in front of your fans. You were hoping that your offense comes out and sets the tone. I'm not disappointed that Minnesota lost by any means, but that is an interesting take by Keith there regarding the approach to how they handle the kickoff?
I don't know, man. They had it their way. They were up 14-10 at the half. They were winning at halftime. So, with that strategy, and I'm pretty sure that they felt great about the halftime score. Like, look, we're winning, and all we got to do is keep on doing what we're doing. And matter of fact, they did keep on doing what they were doing offensively because they end up scoring 31 points for the entire game and everything like that. So, I mean, I don't have any problem with definitely how Minnesota played on offense. If I'm a Minnesota fan, Ohio State has a lot of big play receivers, a lot of big play weapons out there. We talked about the freshman Trayvon Henderson. He didn't get going in the running game, but he caught that swing pass and took it like 50. So, those are the small things. And ultimately, Minnesota had the lead going into the halftime. So, I mean, we could play that game, but I think they were fine and happy where they were at halftime, having the lead over Ohio State.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that Keith brought this up. Keith Tolliver, he brought up the fact that the targeting call was against former Springfield player, which was pretty interesting. I mean, that the Minnesota player that went down hard played at Springfield, and then Michael Brown-Stevens.
Okay.
But Michael Brown-Stevens last night had 2 receptions for 34 yards, but he was the one that was hit real hard late in that game, of course, that was bringing about the targeting controversy late in that ball game. But that was pretty cool getting a chance to see him play against the Bucs as well. Steve Stetler on Facebook says, no doubt we will score, but can the defense make necessary corrections for next week? Go Bucs. So there you go.
They have to get better as a defense, because not only is Oregon, think about it like this. Oregon's head coach is a former offensive lineman. Like, he works hand in hand with the offensive line. So, that's his pride and joy. We talk about Ryan Day being an offensive guru. There's no wonder why Ohio State scores a ton of points, because that's his baby. So we know that Oregon's going to come to play, especially in the run game. And also, you got to think that Oregon's going to spread you out. Their quarterback is going to keep it on one of those zone reads to the outside. So you got that element. Also, you have the element of Kayvon Thibodeau, top 5 pick in the NFL draft, upcoming draft. So we're going to have to worry about that guy off the edge. So there's a lot to worry about, not only offensively, but defensively for the Buckeyes especially.
Number 11, Oregon opens up the season at home as they welcome in Fresno State for a 2 o'clock kickoff tomorrow. So make sure you keep an eye on that game just to have an idea for what Oregon looks like coming in. Again, a top 25 showdown, potentially a top 10 showdown. If Oregon beats Fresno State tomorrow, we could see a top 10 matchup for the Buckeyes in week 2, a week from tomorrow, noon kickoff. Unfortunately, I hate the noon kickoff, but you can catch the noon kickoff right here on Dayton's home of the Ohio State Buckeyes, 1410 Wing AM. Kev, who we got? 518-1410, 518-1410. Who's on hold?
We got Nick.
Nick, how are you, sir? Welcome.
Oh, we lost Nick.
We lost Nick. All right, Nick, we'll get back to you here. There's some other callers on hold. We'll get to you guys as well on the other side. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Brian Schwederman on Facebook, Kev, says that the defensive rotations were suspect at best. That is a coaching lapse. If Coach Coombs is in over his head, trade him for a washing machine and some icy hot. Look, there's been a lot of criticism of him at defensive coordinator, not just because of last night. I mean, we just had Adam Rittenberg on from ESPN, college football analyst. He said the same thing. He knows how good of a secondary coach Coombs is, but as far as the defensive coordinator, you know how many plays I saw last night? Guys were running off the field at the exact last second. There was just a lot of miscommunication. They didn't look in sync. And that's the one thing I'll say about Urban Meyer teams that were different, even with Coombs on that staff. Urban Meyer teams, they never looked sloppy in regards to rotations. Like, everyone knew where they had to be at exactly the right time. I will say, and this isn't a criticism against Ryan Day, but it is one difference I have noticed between the Ryan Day teams and the Urban Meyer. The Urban Meyer teams were more buttoned up. Everyone knew where they had to be at the exact right time. There was no people running around like chickens with their head cut off. I saw a lot of that last night, if that's even room to be critical of. Maybe that gets better as the season moves on. But I just thought that was kind of different last night, seeing how unorganized Ohio State seemed at times as far as getting guys in and out. But you brought up a good point. They played a ton of guys. They played a ton of guys. This was their preseason. As you know, that's the first chance you get to see them go up against somebody that's not their own team. And we saw that last night.
I'm going to chalk it up to that. Them playing a lot of guys, trying to figure out who meshes well with who out there in the secondary, especially the linebacking core and everything like that, because I did see that as well. So that's just something everybody has to clean up. We talk about how that CJ Stroud getting more comfortable cleaning things up and everything like that, but that happens for the coaches as well. They haven't coached a game since the championship game. So, they're veterans and everything like that. I'm sure they'll have it cleaned up by game 2.
Hour 2 coming up next. 518-1410 plus more of your Facebook reaction. We'll also take a look. We talked about that Oregon-Fresno State game. Not a huge game. No one's excited to watch Oregon against Fresno State, but I am excited to watch Oregon tomorrow just to kind of get a feel for what the Buckeyes are in store for a week from tomorrow right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Hour 2 coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Hey, Buckeye fans, as the official wing sponsor of your Ohio State Buckeyes, Roosters is giving away 12 trips for 2 to this year's Buckeye Bowl game. Each trip comes complete with airfare, hotel, gift bag, and 2 tickets to the big game. One bowl prize winner will be chosen each week, along with other cool Roosters weekly prizes. So register every week at roosterswings.com. Roosters, a fun casual joint, and the official wing sponsor of Ohio State Athletics. Official contest rules at roosterswings.com.
Hey y'all, this is your girl Cheryl Underwood, and I want to tell you something. My digestive system used to make me feel sluggish, but those days are over. Now I feel great. That's because I increased my fiber intake with the Metamucil 2-week challenge, and I'm still hooked. I just took Metamucil every day for 14 days, and it's really that easy. Metamucil traps and removes the waste that weighs you down, so you feel lighter and more energetic. Now I never want to go back to that heavy feeling. Are you ready for the Metamucil 2-week challenge? For a coupon and daily support, sign up at Metamucil.com today.
Oh, according to research, 82% of people remember radio ads. So 82% of you listening will remember that this is an ad for ZipRecruiter. 82% of you will note that if you're hiring, ZipRecruiter finds qualified people for your job. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And 82% of you will remember that you can try ZipRecruiter for free, but you have to go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. Yes, free. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
O'Reilly Auto Parts is here to keep your car on the road with the right parts, advice from our parts professionals, and our free loaner tool program. Your local store has more than 80 specialty tools available for your next repair. Refundable deposit required. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and ask about our free loaner tool program or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Staples Connect has everything for back to school at amazing prices. Right now, Crayola 12-count colored pencils and 10+2 Crayola marker bonus packs and Bic Round Stick Ballpoint Pen 10 packs are just 97 cents each. So you won't just be ready for school, you'll be Prepared Parent of the Year ready.
I just want to thank my family and Staples for making this possible.
Visit your local Staples store or staples.com/back to school today and get more than ready for school. Hands 9/18, limit 30 on Crayola. Bic pens in store only.
When you have trouble sleeping, it's tough. When kids have trouble sleeping,
Mom, I can't sleep. Dad, just one more story?
for nights like this, try Vicks Pure Z's Kids. Our great tasting gummies are specially formulated for kids with a unique blend of botanicals and a low dose of melatonin to support their natural sleep cycle. Best of all, they're drug-free and non-habit forming. Help your child fall asleep naturally with Pure Z's Kids Gummies. Consult with a doctor before use. For ages 4 and up.
Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzz driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You can kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
Oh, what? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Don't miss the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. College football playoffs, Browns, Bengals, Buckeyes, and more. Catch the Keith Byers Show Mondays at noon on 1410 ESPN Radio. We are Dayton's home of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Into the end zone goes Chris Olave. KJ Hill, 6-yard touchdown catch. Right sideline and down he goes to the end zone.
WING 1410 Dayton's ESPN Radio. We're live. We're local. We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Justin Kinner, Kev Nash back with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. The show brought to you by Orion Sports Medicine. Ohio State 45, Minnesota 31, the final last night. Ohio State and Oregon will go head-to-head in week 2. Oregon has Fresno State tomorrow for a 2 o'clock kickoff, and Ohio State and Oregon a week from tomorrow will have a noon kickoff right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Our coverage begins at 10:30 a.m. on 1410 Wing AM and 92.9 Jack FM, our sister station. No line has been released yet for that Ohio State-Oregon game, and understandably so. Again, probably released after the Oregon game tomorrow. But that's going to be the intriguing part. Ohio State, top 5 team in the country, 1-0 after their 45-31 win at Minnesota. The one stat, too, that was brought up while you were out taking care of business, Kev, was the fact that when you look at the total combined rushing stats for both teams, Minnesota had 50 carries last night. Mm-hmm. Ohio State had 26 carries. Both teams rushed for 200 yards. So Minnesota had 203 total yards. Ohio State had 201 total rushing yards. And Minnesota had twice the amount of carries as Ohio State's running backs did. Now, a lot of that, too, keep in mind, I mean, when you look at the fact that if you subtract that 71-yard burst that Williams had, you know, it's not like, I mean, Ohio State didn't dominate on the ground. They got some big first downs on the ground. They were able to extend some drives on the ground. But if you subtract that 71-yard touchdown early in the game by Williams, it's a little bit of a different ball game because on those, I mean, he averaged 13 or basically 14 yards a carry, but all of that stemmed from that 171-yard carry that he had for the touchdown up the sideline. So that's what's interesting about that is the fact that Ohio State, even though it looks sexy on paper, the total rushing stats that they had, try to get a little bit more bang for their buck, though. Again, 201 rushing yards on 26 carries. You subtract that 71-yard burst, maybe we're talking about 150 total rushing yards, which may not be a big deal, but it could have been in a two-possession game like that.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't run the ball as much as Minnesota did. I mean, I wasn't expecting 50 carries out of Ohio State, but I expected them to run the ball a little bit more than they did. And I expected more zone read out of them, get, CJ Stroud on the edge a little bit, him have some keepers, but I don't recall him having a design run at all. I remember him scrambling like once or twice, but I don't remember him running at all. And, he had that big 48-yard touchdown run against Michigan State last year and everything like that. But I don't remember him running the ball at all. Ohio State is known so much for, getting a numbers advantage in the run game with the quarterback with the ability to run. He really didn't do that. Coach Day didn't really dial that up too much for him in yesterday's matchup. But you're right. Like there weren't any outside of the 71-yarder, there weren't like any big splash plays outside of the run game besides that. And Minnesota's approach was kind of very old school, even though it was out of the shotgun. It was very keep away. We're going to keep grinding. We're going to keep pounding the rock inside. And, he was getting, 5-6 yards a pop. And, it was working. I mean, if their defense has any type of stop in the second half, we're talking about a different ball game.
Much different ball game at that. But again, you talked yesterday about the defense getting those big time, play, and they got that, and that was a difference maker.
Big difference maker.
Look, this game was easy to kind of analyze heading in as far as what to expect. I think there wasn't many people out there that expected Ohio State just to blow the roof off, of the place as far as that goes. I think everyone anticipated that it would be kind of a tight first half, tight. It would be a tight first half, Tuco. Breaking Bad. There you go. But the point is like, I think everyone anticipated it being a sluggish start. I mean, I think every show I heard, every podcast I was listening to, every interview, talking with a couple guys, everyone believed it was going to be a sluggish start for Ohio State. And the game was going to start at halftime with what adjustments Ryan Day and the Buckeyes coaching staff made. And obviously it was more so just about the settling down of CJ Stroud. Daryl McKinney, the SEC commissioner, by the way, I hope he's doing well. He messaged in saying that this was a false alarm, not the struggles, but the success of the offense. He goes, there is no way that this is a big play offense. The chances of 40-plus yard plays every possession, it's not going to happen against the Ducks and the best defensive end in college. So that's coming up, of course, with Oregon. But, he's talking about Ohio State. I think of pretty much on every touchdown last night, those weren't in the red zone. Pretty much every touchdown were those big 40-plus yard, plays. Yeah, which is exciting. It's cool. It's fun. But Daryl's kind of right. Wow, I don't think I've ever called him Daryl. McKinney is right. Those plays, you're not going to always score on those big plays. I mean, a lot of times what's funny about CJ Stroud's debut is he didn't score in a lot of short yardage situations. It was a lot of big plays. It was that big pass to TreVeyon Henderson or the screen pass to TreVeyon Henderson, Olave and those guys down the field, and Wilson and those guys. So he's kind of right. And even that burst that we talked about the run game, it was that 71-yard run up the sideline by Williams to help pace the Buckeyes on the ground. But that's going to be key moving forward is if those big plays are taken away, how are you going to adjust? And a good example is this. We were used to watching Trevor Lawrence and Clemson have their way with defenses. Trevor Lawrence, you couldn't stop him. 2 years ago, Trevor Lawrence in the Fiesta Bowl, the Buckeyes took the passing game away from him a little bit. He was not comfortable. But what did he do? He ran for 100 yards. He adjusted. He made adjustments. We haven't seen Ohio State make adjustments from that view yet. Like they made adjustments at halftime, and they took what the defense gave them. But what happens when you run into a defense like they're probably going to run into against Oregon a week from tomorrow? If they do take away those big plays away from Ohio State, then what does CJ Stroud look like? Then what does the run game look like? Who sets up who? who does? I mean, theoretically, the run game sets up the pass game. But if that run game's not there, if that big 71-yard burst at the sideline doesn't happen, does C.J. Stroud ever get comfortable and get settled in? That's the big question.
Oh, it's a question for sure. But the thing about college football is set up for big plays. I think the difference is because we score touchdowns on our big plays. You know, a lot of times when big plays happen, you get tackled at the 30 or something like that, or inside the 10. So it sets up a different type of touchdown. The difference between those and last night is those touchdowns that we had, they actually made it to the end zone. So I understand what he's saying, but like, that's how every offense of good offenses work. They always get a chunk play in a scoring drive. This isn't the days of like, all right, we're going to drive down the field in 5-yard chunks. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. These offenses are designed to get chunk plays. That's how the offenses are designed to go. They're not designed to say like, all right, man, 5 yards, 2nd and 5 yards, 1st and 10, 5 yards. This is not the plotting offenses of back in the day. So the big plays, I believe that Coach Day will have a way to design those big plays because that's all he's ever done. Every single year, there's been big plays from Ohio State's offense. Every regime I've ever seen, big plays have been there. Especially, I mean, we can go back to Tressel, even though Tressel ball was like a bad word around here. Well, remember what Terrell Pryor did? Big plays. Remember what Troy Smith did? Big plays. Like, remember Maurice Crowett? Big plays. Like, it's big plays in college football. So chunk plays happen no matter what type of offense you're running. That's how it's designed for you to get chunk plays. And you're right. Like, I'm just looking at these stats. And Olave, 4 for 117, 2 touchdowns, a longer 61, which you scored a touchdown on. Garrett Wilson, 5 for 80, a touchdown, 56 yards. Trayvon Henderson, his one catch went 70 yards, touchdown.
For a touchdown, yeah.
Like, this is chunk yardage. And now 70 yards, 60 yards, maybe not that, more like 40 and 50 years more what I'm visioning, but I'll take 70-yard plays. I like one drives of 70 yards for a touchdown. I take it whatever I can get them.
Well, it's kind of like when a team in basketball, they hit 23s in a game and you win. You're like, oh, man, look, they kicked their ass. I'm like, well, can they rely? I mean, they're not going to hit 23s every game.
Right.
If the three's not falling, how are they going to win? And that's kind of the equivalent to this from a football perspective. Okay, when those big shots aren't falling, when those big plays aren't leading to 6 points and leading to those touchdowns, who are the Buckeyes at that point? So I think that's a fair question to ask, but I don't want to take away from a very young team last night making the plays that they did. Again, watching C.J. Stroud kind of grow as the game went on. The defense making the adjustments that they did. They still have a lot of question marks as well. I mean, they gave up 14 points in the first half, and then, they gave up 10 points in the first half. Ohio State, his defense gave up 14 points in the first half and 17 in the second. Fairly consistent as far as that goes. The line on that game, 13.5. It was a 14-point finish. The line was 14 earlier in the week, and then it shrunk to 13.5, I think 24 hours before kickoff. And sure enough, they get it right. That's why I say we laugh all the time about that stuff, but it's like, more times than not, they get it right. I mean, to get it that damn close, even if it was a 17-point game, it was still close. Like, they knew something. Like, they could just tell. I mean, it's crazy to me.
At one point in the game, it was 38-24. It was like 9 minutes left, and I'm thinking to myself, can we get 9 minutes of no scoring? Can we chew the clock for like 5-6 minutes? Nope. I wanted to have my score right so bad. Like, I wanted that 38-24 so bad, but I'll take the win, 45-31.
And it was at 24. And I remember us doing the over-under yesterday. So our over-under for C.J. Stroud was 3.5 touchdowns. I said under. I said right at 3. What did you say?
I went under as well.
So again, we were off on that by a touchdown. I said he would get 3. He threw 4. Yep. That's super. Ohio State, I forgot what would they give up more than 24 points? 24.5 points. I said the under as well. I said right about 24 is what they'd give up. They gave up 31, but it was at 24 for the longest time. And then I forgot what the other one was, but regardless, Trayvon Henderson, you said he would have more than 100 plus yards rushing. I said he would have, I don't remember what the heck
you went under.
I remember saying under because I did not account for Williams. I thought that the Williams performance would have been Trayvon's performance, but Trayvon still had that big play, with the screen pass that went for 70 plus. So still a big night for him. It was a big night for a lot of different Buckeyes. You have to feel good. It's going to feel cool watching this matchup with Oregon coming up next week. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. We'll talk about some of the other top matchups in college football as we head into the weekend. I mean, it's here. It's real.
Yeah. We'll talk about the matchups.
There we go. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be partly cloudy, a high near 80. Tonight will also be partly cloudy, a low near 58. And tomorrow will be partly cloudy and nice, a high near 80. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Hi, John Glazer here for Glazer Soft Water. We've been making water great since 1988, and no matter what your water issues, we have solutions. Your city water can be clear, but still be hard and have the taste and odor of chlorine. Well water can look, smell, and taste terrible. Glazer Soft Water will fix your water and will even include a 7-year parts and labor warranty so you don't have to worry. Visit our website to learn more at glazersoftwater.com. Glazer Water really is better water.
Attention Class A CDL drivers. Looking to be more than just a number? Yoel Transportation in Dayton is looking for drivers with at least 1.5 years experience. Yoel has open positions for no-tarp flatbed drivers and no-touch regional or local van drivers. Yoel is ELD compliant and offers 401k with match, medical, dental, vision, holiday pay, vacation, safety bonuses, and now has a rider policy. Call Rick or Joe at 937-294-5933 and ask about the $5,000 sign-on bonus today.
The best thing about fall is the way the world changes colors. And this season, you can change up yours at Lowe's. Now, buy one, get one 50% off on select Signature or Duramax paint and primers in one, and select Valspar exterior stains via rebate. This Labor Day, let's all fall together with Lowe's, in-store and online. Lowe's, home to any budget, home to any possibility. See store associate or Lowe's.com for details and restrictions. Valid 9/2/21 through 9/8/21. U.S. only.
With Amdro, you can enjoy your backyard like never before. Our round-the-clock pest protection gives you the peace of mind to enjoy your great outdoors without a care in the world. Okay, we can't defend you against the splash zone. But when it comes to ants and other pests, we've got you covered 24/7. Find Amdro in the insecticide aisle at your nearest retailer.
Start fall with everything to do business better during Dell Technologies Labor Day event. Save up to 45% on select business PCs with Windows 10 Pro. Power your workday with savings on Dell servers, monitors, docks, and other accessories, plus free shipping on everything. Do more with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro. Call 877-ASK-DELL for a Dell Technologies advisor who can help you find the right tech. That's 877-ASK-DELL for business specials during Dell's Labor Day event.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
Taco Bell presents a get-out-of-bedtime story. It's time to wake up from this amazing dream, even though you're jet skiing on lemonade. How extreme! And oh, look at that, you just won the lottery. Is that a castle? Take the keys, it's your property. What's better than swimming in space? Just wait for the big reveal. It's Taco Bell breakfast and it's actually real. So it's time to wake up and bid your dreams farewell, because toasted breakfast burritos are waiting for you, only at Taco Bell. Participating Taco Bell locations near you during breakfast hours only.
You have empty office space to fill or home office to create. You know what you need. You know what you'd like. But you also have a pretty good idea after you've shopped around the usual places what you need and what you like might not happen. Well, then you haven't been to Charles Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. Nobody has their selection. Nobody has their discounts. And every week there's something new. If you need office furniture, Larrick's Warehouse Outlet can sell it to you for half the price and below manufacturer's selected prices. half price and below on hundreds of items. Selection from budget to the best. Really, desks from $50 to $5,000. Filing cabinets from $25 to $500. Before you go anywhere else, do yourself a favor and come to Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. With 25,000 square feet of selection, you're not going to go anywhere else. Larrick's Warehouse Outlet at 23 McOil Avenue, Dayton. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Larrick's, continuing the tradition.
Maybe now is the time for a new job and a fresh start. Alpha Media Dayton and ESPN 1410 Wing are interviewing for radio account executives. Radio reaches more people than any other medium, and combined with our digital ad products, you will provide clients with effective on-air and online solutions that deliver results. If you consider yourself driven, competitive, have sales experience, and want to work in radio, we need you. To submit your resume, log on to wingam.com and click careers. Alpha Media is an equal opportunity employer.
Vaccines are not enough, and accurate thermometers are essential for everyone. COVID is once again a major concern, and fever is the key symptom for both the flu and COVID. An accurate thermometer, like the Exergen temporal scanner, is essential to detect fevers early and reliably. Studies have shown that non-contact thermometers are ineffective and therefore dangerous, as they create a false sense of security. Exergen is working with a single focus to ensure that everyone who needs an accurate thermometer can purchase one. Learn more at exergen.com.
At Allstate, we've been saying you're in good hands for a long time. But what exactly does that mean? Does it mean you're protected from life's uncertainties? Does it mean you can worry less and live a little more? Does it mean you're not alone, even when things get kind of hard? Actually, yes. Yes, it does. You're in good hands with Allstate.
Allstate and affiliates offer products and services subject to availability, terms, and conditions.
Angie's List is now Angie. Angie connects you with top home pros who can help with projects big and small. Start your home project at Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.
Don't miss the ESPN Dayton Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week every Friday night, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and Justin Kinner will have the call all season long. Check out wingam.com for the complete schedule and to stream the games live. On Twitter, make sure to give us a follow. Search 1410 Kinner for Justin Kinner on Twitter. That's 1410 KINNER and ESPN Dayton for the station Twitter handle.
The Cincinnati Reds and the Dodgers game that will take place at Great American Ballpark later this month, because it is September. The Sunday, September 19th game against the Dodgers that has been selected for ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. It's rare. I can't tell you the last time I've seen a night game on a Sunday at Great American Ballpark, but that has been moved to Sunday Night Baseball. 7:10 will be the first pitch. The pregame show will begin at 6:40. So just keep that in mind for any of you who have tickets to that game. In fact, we have tickets to that game, and we'll give tickets away to that game. But Reds Dodgers on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, two playoff teams. I mean, right now, these are the reason this is such a big deal. This is a wild card preview. That's if the Reds can hold on. The Reds have struggled over the last week or so, and they were such a big deal. They were the talk of everything, especially around here, because of the fact that here we are heading into September, now officially in September, and the Reds are playing meaningless game. They're playing meaningful games. I'm sorry, I can't even say it right. They are playing meaningful games post trade deadline for the first time in a long time, but they're already 10 games back of their own division, which means it's all about the wild card at this point. And the Giants are starting to slump a little bit. They're 5-5 in their last 10, which we did anticipate at some point them kind of coming back down to reality a little bit. Dodgers and Giants both tied at 85 and 49. It could be a wild card preview between the Dodgers and Reds, but it also could be the Giants and Reds that ultimately meet in that one-game wild card, because the Dodgers could end up pulling away and winning this division, which is what everyone had anticipated, even without Trevor Bauer. I remember earlier in the year, you and I, we were annoyed that the Reds played at LA back in April, if I'm not mistaken, and they awarded Trevor Bauer his Cy Young Award back in April, which I thought was kind of silly, because usually when you award awards like that, or you present awards like that to players, you usually do it at the stadium or the arena, if it's basketball or others, of the team that they won the award with. Trevor Bauer won the franchise's first ever Cy Young Award last season when he was with the Cincinnati Reds in the 60-game shortened season. He has missed pretty much the entire season due to the sexual assault allegations against him. Major League Baseball has continued to keep him out, which kudos to baseball, kudos to the Dodgers for doing the right thing in this situation, because what's happening in the NFL with Deshaun Watson is really irritating me. I know that there's the possibility that he could be innocent and that they would be punishing an innocent man, but at the same time, the optics don't look good. The optics would not have looked good for the Dodgers had Trevor Bauer been out there pitching this entire time. All of the details of his case continue to be leaked out to the media, and that's what's uncomfortable about the Deshaun Watson thing. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now, so let me regather myself a bit. But I was expecting Trevor Bauer to get the Cy Young Award, presented to him in Cincinnati here this month. Back in April, whenever we originally thought that was going to be the case. But obviously, it's a good thing he got the award presented to him when he did, because it's not going to happen in Cincinnati coming up. So.
At all. Yeah, it's a crazy situation that's going on with him and Deshaun Watson. So, all we can do is just sit and wait.
So Sunday, September 19th, Reds-Dodgers, Sunday Night Baseball from Great American Ballpark. That'll be pretty cool. That was a game that was scheduled for 1:10. It'll now be a night game under the lights. So there you go. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. Kev, we talked at length about Ohio State, Minnesota, 45-31 the final. Ohio State 1-0 on the season as they head into their matchup in Week 2 against the Oregon Ducks out of the Pac-12. And all the Oregon Ducks have to do is get through Fresno State tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And we'll have a top 10 showdown a week from tomorrow right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Other finals from last night. By the way, there is a game tonight. North Carolina, top 10 team. They're welcoming in Virginia Tech. North Carolina, top 10 team. They're 5.5-point favorites at home. Actually, they're at Virginia Tech. I apologize. My fault. Either way. They're a 5.5-point favorite on the road. I talked yesterday about the optics of Ohio State only being a 13.5-point favorite on the road at Minnesota. Here's a top 10 North Carolina team who many believe have a real opportunity to fight for a playoff spot to represent the ACC. They're a 5.5-point favorite against an unranked Virginia Tech team as we currently sit here right now.
A lot of things going on with B Tech right now. A lot of seems like behind the program issues. A lot of guys, transferred. A lot of guys opted out last season, and the guys that didn't do that last year have, transferred. So it's a very young roster. So I am kind of surprised that it isn't a larger margin of a spread for North Carolina. I know North Carolina lost a lot of guys off their offense, namely their 2 running backs who are in the NFL right now, but they still got Sam Howell. They still got a couple receivers and things of that nature. So, it's going to be a tough road test. I mean, we talked about Ohio State's tough road test going to Minnesota and everything like that. It's the same thing for North Carolina. You want to prove your worth. You go in there and you win a game like this. First game of the season, everybody still thinks they have a chance to win a national championship. So, they're going to give them their best shot. But, North Carolina wants to be where they want to be in the ACC championship game, probably versus Clemson. They got to win this game. Get off to a hot start.
Other final scores from last night. A very good night of college football for a Thursday night kickoff to the 2021 college football season. Technically, last week it was kicked off during week 0. But Coastal Carolina takes care of business against one of Alabama's biggest rivals, the Citadel. 52-14 the final last night. Coastal Carolina, top 25 team. They're picking up right where they left off last year. Very impressive win. Not so much about who they played, but just, again, when you put 50 up on that was my point yesterday. Optics matter, the style points. When you want to talk about the optics here, we can sit there and say, well, they played the Citadel. But when you put 50 points up on the Citadel, yes, it's the Citadel, but you also proved, hey, yeah, we put 50 up on a team. Like, we're that much better than them. It doesn't matter who we play as long as we look good against them, and that's what happened last night. Utah over Weber State. Or is it Weber or Weber?
Weber, the fighting Dame Lillard.
So, it did not mean. Kev gets real sensitive about Mr. Dame Lillard, and rightfully so. So, top 25 Utah defeats Weber State, the fighting Dame Lillards, as you talked about, 40-17 last night. Herm Edwards, wins 41-14. Herm Edwards in Arizona State, another top 25 team, beat Southern Utah 41-14. But last night, how about UCF last night?
that was the game of the night outside of the Buckeyes, man. I watched the highlights at halftime, and their quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, he's like on a rollout, and he has a guy wide open. Well, he sees a guy wide open in the end zone, but he doesn't see the DB. So he just tosses it, and the DB is like, "Oh, you're just going to throw it right to me? I'll take that." He took it 100 yards for the touchdown. So that I believe that Boise State was up 21-0 at that time after that pick six. But throughout the second half, they come storming back. So I caught it. I was watching after the Ohio State game went off. I caught the touchdown where they cut it to 3, and then I faded asleep. But then eventually I saw the highlights this morning that they actually won the game. Pretty good game last night.
So the American Conference, it's a very important year for them. Look, they've been preaching how they are just, the Power Fives, they've been real offended that they're not, getting more respect. And their commissioner's done a great job of trying to keep them at the forefront. Last year, they moved forward during COVID. They weren't even considering calling it a season. They weren't even considering putting any restrictions on there because they didn't even put restrictions on the non-conference games because they knew, hey, that's where our conference makes the majority of our money is taking on those road games. But of course, Big Ten and other conferences did not go. They went conference only, which, really put them in a tough spot as far as finding games was concerned outside of their own conference. But a lot of talk about UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, who's not a part of that conference, but and then Houston, who is joining the Big 12. There's been talks of, the Big 12, they might just disband. They only have 8 teams. What's next? Are they even a destination conference right now? Or is the American Conference, is this where they can maybe absorb the Big 12 and become the, new Power 5 or what have you? It seems like they're going hot and heavy. BYU and Houston are their top 2 teams that they're looking at. I know a lot of Ohio fans around here got real defensive on social media. Keep in mind, Houston, they're trying to go after that Texas market, which makes a lot of sense. BYU is an established brand, which is why they bring a lot for football and basketball. Basketball, the same thing for Houston. Cincinnati's new money as far as the level of success that they've reached recently. I know that they have proven in years past, even going back to when Kelly was there, that the program can elevate to high levels, but they haven't been able to sustain it. This is the first time that I could think of that this program's been able to sustain this kind of dominance. So that's why they're, a landing spot as well, potentially. But it's a big year for the American Conference because they want to prove that, hey, we're the conference. And our conference, if you look at the life support of our conference versus the Big 12, they're perceived as better right now. They just look healthier. But last night, UCF came back to beat Boise, which was good for them. NC State beat South Florida. Appalachian State beat East Carolina. And then the one that was really the one that they took in the gut, Tulsa, who's also been a very good team over the last couple of years, they lose to UC Davis.
Yeah.
You can't lose to UC Davis, and they lost 19-14 last night at home. Yeah. They lost a home game. That's not good for the conference right there.
No, it's not a good look for them. But as long as the power guys like the UCFs and the UCs do what they're supposed to do and win games, and obviously UC has, they got opportunities out the wazoo this year. Obviously, them playing Notre Dame and also playing Indiana, they're primed for opportunities to really make a name for themselves. And speaking about the American and the Big 12, if I'm the Big 12, and this is where this is fascinating to me, if I'm the Big 12, I have to have a team in the state of Texas. So obviously it's Houston. It's like one of the biggest cities in the United States. So you got to have them. So you go after them. You go after a UCF. You go after UC. But this is going to sound crazy to people, but BYU is Notre Dame light. Like, they're an independent school, they're a Mormon school, things of that nature. Like, I know we here in the Midwest only think of Notre Dame, but like, you go out there, you go out to the West Coast and everything like that, there's a ton of BYU fans out there, like not only basketball, but football as well. So if they're able to absorb those teams, I think they'll find themselves in a good spot. But on the flip side, the American, are they all united? Are all those schools united in a front to say, look, man, if we all just stick together, and you UCF and you UC and you Houston and you Memphis, y'all keep doing what y'all doing, they'll bump us up. Maybe we'll take on Oklahoma State. Maybe we'll take on Kansas, and we build it that way, because we already know that they're a good basketball conference. I mean, look, Houston's a good at basketball.
You imagine? I love, and by the way, I love that conference.
Yeah.
That is what I mean.
So, like,
especially in basketball.
That's the thing. Like, who's gonna blink? Who's gonna blink? Are the schools inside the conference gonna blink and say, "All right, man, we out of here. We're gonna go to the Big 12," or are they gonna stand together and say, "Look, man, if we just play our cards right and continue to do what we're doing on the football field, we're gonna be in the spot where we're gonna be that fifth power conference." Because we'll just go ahead and take Kansas for their basketball, obviously, and we'll take Oklahoma State for all the money that they have and bring them to us. Because everybody in the Big 12, like, they got to be looking around. The schools got to be looking around like, look, man, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to last. Can they get Houston to join us? Because if they don't, we might fold. So they're going to be looking at every option. It's obvious that every school in that conference is going to be looking at every option. If I'm Oklahoma State and I'm West Virginia, I might be calling up the American asking what's up.
The only problem is the Big 12 still has the resources that the American doesn't. So it's one of those where even though the Big 12 has taken that punch in they've taken that shot in the chin, they still can dangle the resources over the heads of Cincinnati, UCF, and others, saying, "Hey, we're beat up right now, but if you bring your market, the Florida market at UCF and the Ohio recruiting here for Cincinnati, if you bring your stuff to the table along with our resources, look what you're doing with the Americans' resources. Imagine what you could do with our resources." So that's the Big 12 versus those teams.
Right.
The American Conference has to start wooing their own teams too. Like the American Conference can't sit back and say, "We're good. These guys are all ours right now," because everyone's a free agent right now.
Right.
We learned that very quickly. Texas and Oklahoma are supposed to be Big 12 teams through 2025, and yet they're still seeing other people. The divorce isn't final to 2025. They just have an open marriage right now until the divorce is final. So, yes, Cincinnati's married to the American Conference. UCF is married. That means nothing. Okay, that means nothing. They could sleep with other people if they want to. That's ultimately what's going to end up happening. The American Conference has to make sure that their teams are satisfied, and I think that at a certain point, the money will become a thing. And right now, if you're Cincinnati, you also got to tell yourself, from a brand perspective, it's too bad that Cronin left the basketball program, because as an athletics package, Cincinnati is super, they're interesting, because I think that they could say, if you look at the success between basketball and football, and then you put it in a conference that would give us more money and resources, we could only go up. Like things are looking up. It's not like it's a bad football program and a bad basketball program combined. They're making it work they're doing more with less in the American. Imagine what they could do with more in the Big 12. Same thing for UCF. And the Cincinnati has Luke Fickell. UCF has Gus Malzahn. So all of a sudden, the Big 12, they're reeling a little bit, but you're absorbing decent programs, but you're absorbing Gus Malzahn, you're absorbing Luke Fickell, you're absorbing the recruiting in the state of Ohio, you're absorbing the big market in Florida. And then Houston, the same thing. You get the state of Texas representation there. And then, yes, it's about football, but basketball too. You're getting very good basketball marketed cities right there. And I think that would be huge for the Big 12. It would take a little bit to build. It would take a little bit for the perception for guys like us to look at Cincinnati and not as a mid-tier team, but as a legitimate Power 5 team. It would take some time, but there's no better time than now. The Bearcats need to jump now because they have Luke Fickell. Their best chance to keep Luke Fickell is to probably go to the Big 12 with more money and more resources. You know what I mean? Like, the same thing with UCF. Gus Malzahn, if he has a great year this year, there's going to be other teams, bigger teams back in the SEC, Big Ten, ACC saying, "Hey, your Florida State team, who knows?" They could sit there and say, "We want you." But if they become a Big 12 team, now Fickell and Gus Malzahn aren't as eager to leave their current grounds because, hey, we're in a better situation, more money and resources, and recruiting is going to go up as well because of that.
The only rebuttal to that is
no rebuttals. It's the Justin Kidder show. You can't rebuttal it. Yes, I'm just joking.
When are their TV contracts up? Because that's when you talk about resources. That's where the resources come from.
Oh, I'm Kev. I ask questions you don't know the answers to.
So
I don't know that. That's a good point.
If Notre Dame, if ESPN and Fox come to the table to the Big 12 saying, "All right, well, y'all don't have Oklahoma and Texas. We're going to offer you guys half the money that you guys signed a contract for last year." And that money is basically on par with the American. then what? Because those resources won't be the same, because those resources are the dollars. Like if you don't have Texas football, you don't have Oklahoma football, that's going to mean a lot of money that they're not even going to think about offering you. Like, dude, your biggest programs that people tune in to watch aren't going to be there. And no matter how much you and I love basketball, the masses aren't watching college basketball until the tournament. And CBS is already forked over their $500 million. So, hey, man, y'all don't, hey, Kansas, that's cool. I mean, we would love to have Kansas basketball, but we could live without it because we got UC and we got Houston, and they're in the tournament all the time, too. So, like, that's where it is. Like, I would guess I would have to Google and see when their TV contract is up. I know that the Big Ten is about to renegotiate theirs, and they're about to get a boatload of money from whomever they decide to go to. So there's a lot of money out there, and it's all about the TV contract. So I don't know. I mean, these are the 1,000,001 questions. These are the questions that those athletic directors and conference commissioners are all asking each other, and got to be behind the scenes. Oklahoma State, West Virginia, UC, UCF, Memphis, like they're all having conversations independently and trying to figure out what's going to happen. Because if you roll the dice and say like, all right, we're going to jump to the Big 12 and you come up craps, then what? If you stay at American and you don't get that bump up, you don't get that extra money that you were expecting, then what? So it's a gamble no matter how you look at it.
All right, we'll step away for a few moments. It's the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine. If we base it on who's the highest paid coaches in college football, we know Nick Saban's the best coach in college football. That means Dabo Swinney technically would be the second best coach in college football. Or is he, a familiar name to Kev Nash, might be considered the second best coach in college football, according to at least how much he's paid? We'll talk about that next. Again, the repercussions of Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC has forced one team to make a very interesting decision. We'll talk about that when we come back. That was a hell of a team. Man, that was good.
It's the Justin Kinder Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Ready for renovations? Arts Rental Equipment has the tools you need to make your home, lawn, and garden stand out this year. From brush chippers to cutoff saws, no job is too small or too big. Visit your local Arts store today. Work smart. Rent from Arts.
Staples Connect has everything for school at amazing prices. Right now, Staples one-subject notebooks are only 25 cents each, and Crayola 24-count crayons, 2-pocket polyfolders, and 4-ounce Elmer's glue are just 50 cents each. So your student won't just be ready for school. There'll be tons of drawings to hang on the fridge ready.
We're going to need a bigger refrigerator.
Visit your local Staples store or staples.com/back-to-school and get amazing prices for everything on your back-to-school list. Ends 9/18, limit 30, notebooks in store only. Offer may vary online.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily dedicated lanes, no touch freight. Apply today at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Do you have an old sports program, baseball, photo, ticket, or game-used equipment just collecting dust? Sports Investments wants to buy your sports memorabilia. They're also interested in old sports cards and also buying political, aviation, and entertainment items. Bring your collectibles to Sports Investments and get a fair value on the spot. If you decide to sell, they'll pay you immediately. Sports Investments is the largest buyer of memorabilia and cards in the area since 1993. Sports Investments also feature the best selection of autographed memorabilia, sports cards, and other collectible items for sale, including all your favorites like Tiger Woods, LeBron James, Joey Votto, the Bengals, the Browns, the Big Red Machine, UC, XU, UK, NKU, UD, Louisville, Notre Dame, and Ohio State, just to name a few. You'll enjoy the experience of dealing with the Walter family. Call them at 513-891-5000. Email Adam at sportsinvestments.com or visit them on Montgomery Road, right off I-275, just 40 minutes from WING.
He raids your fridge.
You're out of Barada.
Borrows your car without asking.
Scratches? What scratches?
He's your brother-in-law.
I'll pay you back.
He takes what's yours, and there's nothing you can do. But when identity thieves want to take what's yours, you can do something. LifeLock by Norton monitors your info and alerts you to potential threats. If you become a victim, they can help fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses, but you can save up to 25% off your first year at LifeLock.com using promo code NEWS.
Who brought the sauce?
I brought the sauce.
Who made the sauce?
I made the sauce.
What's in the sauce?
I am the sauce.
Who brought the sauce?
Spilled the sauce? Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up spills and messes quicker. And each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less than the leading ordinary brand.
Who brought the sauce?
I brought the sauce.
Who made the sauce?
I made the sauce.
What's in the sauce?
I am the sauce.
Who brought the sauce? Okay.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Monster Jam fires up the engines. The legendary grade digger, Megalodon, and more compete in intense competitions of speed and skill. This year's championship lineup includes world record holders who push their trucks to the limit. Experience full throttle family fun. Monster Jam. Coming to Wright State University Nutter Center, October 29th and 30th. Brought to you by BKT Tires and Direct Auto Insurance. Visit monsterjam.com for event details.
This is Keith Byers, and I played in the National Football League for 13 years. As a proud Daytonian, I've got an important message for you guys out there, especially you gentlemen over 40 years old. Know your stats. As a professional athlete, I focused on my numbers every day. Now I focus on my most important stats: blood pressure, sugar, cholesterol, and PSA levels. In the end, those are the numbers that really count. So if you don't know your numbers, now is the time to find out. See your doctor regularly to stay on top of your game, because no matter your age, every day and every number counts.
This message is brought to you by Molina Healthcare and Community Health Centers of Greater Dayton. If you do not have a primary health provider, call Community Health Centers of Greater Dayton at 937-461-6869 or visit communityhealthdayton.org.
Do you have a home improvement project? Use the right tool for the job and rent from Arts Rental Equipment. Arts has the best selection from power washers and ladders to loaders and dump trailers. Work smart. Rent from Arts.
Is fall your favorite season? Lowe's is definitely the place to get ready for it, especially during Labor Day. From fall garden gear to seasonal decor, they have it all at a great price.
The Reds are on the radio. Every hit, every strikeout, every Reds victory. You can catch all of the action all season long right here on Dayton's home of the Reds, 1410 ESPN Radio. Whether you're at home, at work, or in your car, tune in to ESPN 1410 Wing AM or stream us live at wingam.com.
All right, we welcome you back. Justin Kinner, Kevin Nash with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. So, look, we knew that there was going to be some fallout from Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, and we thought that fallout was really going to trickle into other conferences. How would the Big Ten combat that kind of move to, for one, make sure that they strengthen up their own conference, but also make sure that they don't lose teams, that they don't become the Big 12 where they're fighting to keep teams or potentially losing their top 2 brands and then having to kind of, basically keep their head above water. That's really what I was expecting as far as fallout is concerned when it comes to Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. But what I did not think about is how teams within the SEC would combat that, because we keep talking about these conferences as, man, the SEC, they're all one. The Big Ten, they're all one. But really, all of these teams under the setting of the umbrella of being the SEC, Big Ten, and so forth, they're competition as well. Mm-hmm. And Texas A&M right now was very fortunate. I mean, it kind of surprised some people that you had Jimbo Fisher, who was willing to leave Florida State after all the success that he had there. Won national championships, won a national championship. He was in good hands there. Why would he leave? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, he broke it, left, and fixed up Texas A&M. And Texas A&M has some fantastic recruiting classes since he's gotten there. They're one of the top teams in the SEC. They, just like many top teams in the SEC, have not been able to overcome the behemoth in the SEC that is Alabama. But Texas A&M now has a bigger threat in the SEC that's not named Alabama, that's not named Georgia, LSU, or Auburn. It's now Texas. Now, Texas A&M, I know from a brand perspective, is not bigger than the Longhorns. The Longhorns, even on their average Michigan level years, still a bigger brand than Texas A&M. They still hold clout when they're out on the recruiting trail. The Longhorns versus the Aggies, Longhorns tie goes to the more known and respected brand, even though the Texas A&M, the Aggies, they've been more competitive. We know that rivalry that exists between A&M and Texas as well. They're trying to battle it out to be the face of Texas when it comes to college football. So Texas A&M starts to panic a little bit. They had to make sure that they solidified their markings within the SEC and say, okay, you did us dirty a little bit. You kept us in the shade a little bit when it comes to bringing in the Longhorns to the SEC, knowing that they would have probably vetoed that to begin with, and also knowing that they could not veto it without making a lot of enemies and creating a mess for themselves. They had to vote, yeah, bring in Texas. They don't want Texas there. That Texas A&M Texas matchup will come back. But when you think about the competition for Texas A&M, it is Texas, and it's Texas on the recruiting trail. Will we see a recruiting bump for the Longhorns now that they're in the SEC? Possibly. And the reason I think that that's going to be the case is because all of a sudden Texas A&M, they saw it too. They don't want Texas to all of a sudden get a bump on the recruiting trail just because they're an SEC team now. Texas A&M also an SEC team, getting a little weary of that. So what do? They make Jimbo Fisher the second highest paid coach in college football. All right, he will be making about $9.15 million starting in 2023, of course, but he's getting a 25% raise. That sounds nice. But it is interesting that the deal pushes Fisher past LSU's coach Ed Orgeron to the second highest paid coach in college football. Ed Orgeron, of course, just winning his first ever national championship with the LSU Tigers. So keep that in mind. Go Tigers. But yeah, and then you also have Dabo Swinney up at the top of that list, who's won multiple national championships, who has sent so many big names to the NFL, especially at the quarterback position. So it's interesting to see Dabo move his way up those ranks. He was making about $7.5 million, now the second highest paid coach in college football at $9.15 million, just behind Nick Saban. I think this was a smart move by Texas A&M. Regardless of your opinion of of Jimbo Fisher, oh, he's not the second best coach in college football. I don't care about that conversation. The point is of who Jimbo Fisher is to Texas A&M. Because we say all the time, well, he's not that good, get rid of him. He's overrated, get rid. Well, then who do you want to bring in?
Right.
Michigan faces that question all the time. Oh, Jim Harbaugh, he's totally underachieved. But if we get rid of him, who do we get? No matter who we get, they're not going to have that brand or that name that is going to make Michigan feel good about themselves. So they just stick with mediocrity because at least he has a brand. He has a name. Recruits recognize him. The Rodriguez thing didn't work. A lot of those coaches didn't work. This one technically isn't working from a win-loss standpoint, but again, it's a name that has power, that has recognizability, and that type of deal. Jimbo Fisher is not that to Texas A&M, but he means a lot to Texas A&M. He's getting it done on the recruiting trail. They're winning a lot of football games. The pressure will start to increase in the years to come if they don't start maybe getting a win over Alabama or a win over Georgia, the top teams in that conference. But for right now, Texas A&M did this for positive publicity out on the recruiting trail to show that Texas A&M, that they're the premier brand when it comes to Texas football within the SEC, even with the newcomer, the Longhorns. And what are your thoughts on, again, the coach of your former team, Jimbo Fisher, now with Texas A&M becoming the second highest paid coach in college football?
Good old Jimbo. Jimbo is about that bread. Jimbo gets his money. And, he left Florida State on bad terms, but he got the bag to go to Texas A&M, and they're giving him everything he wants at Texas A&M. So now Jimbo Fisher's always had a connection to LSU. He was their offensive coordinator there when they won the national championship when Nick Saban was there. So he's always been connected there as well. So another reason why he got this extension is because Coach O, this is a crucial year for LSU, because people are going to start calling a flash in the pan to say like, oh man, you had that one blip of a year where, you had Joe Burrow, you had Chase, Jamar Chase, you had Justin Jefferson, you had this whiz kid offensive coordinator, like the stars aligned, and now that all those players and those coaches are gone, you can't bring it back. So LSU, like, could he have bounced to go there? Is that a possibility?
That's an interesting angle. I thought
keep
this
throwing
was
money at him.
I thought this was a counter more so to Texas coming in, but I didn't even process that part of it to where it's also in line with LSU. If they have another down year, like they have a big game with UCLA. UCLA, that's a big one this weekend. If UCLA knocks off LSU and Orgeron's not fired, but that seat becomes very warm before you even get into the brunt of your SEC schedule. So that's a good point too, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, and people always say like, "Oh man, give them a chance," and I'm one of those people that says give people a chance and everything like that. But you look at it like this: when Auburn won their national championship with Cam Newton, their coach was fired the year after. The year they won the national championship with Cam Newton, they go back, they run it back or whatever, and they win like 6 games or whatever, and he was fired. Like, that's how it goes. Like, these schools ain't playing around. Like, once they taste success, they want to continue to taste success. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is, Texas A&M, they want to, like you said, they had a one-up kind of on Texas to say, like, we're the only program in Texas that's playing in the SEC. We're the only ones doing that. And like it or not, recruits love that. Recruits, they can sell that to recruits and say, like, we're playing in the best conference. Why would you go to Texas? They play in the Big 12. We play in the SEC. They use that to their recruiting advantage. And now that Texas is in their same conference, that's a thing for them. Like, hold on, man. This is what you guys told us we were going to be the only ones, and now you guys let them in. Now we're going to be down a peg because Texas is always going to be number one over A&M because of the brand, and they've been around for eons and everything like that. So it's trying to anchor him in and say, well, he's not going anywhere. So no matter what rumors you hear, he's going to stay here. We'll prove it by giving him a whole bunch more money. So it's a ton here, man. It's so much money out there that they throwing at these coaches. It's so many. I mean, even think about it. I'm looking at it right now. The athletic director, Scott Woodard, hired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M 4 years ago. And now he's the AD at LSU. Like, all these stars are aligning for either him to go to LSU or for him to keep getting bigger paydays.
Yeah, I thought this was a Texas. I mean, I'm sure it could have been all discussed, but this is more an LSU thing than it is Texas. I thought it was more of it because Texas technically doesn't become a factor until years from now.
Right.
If the lawyers of the SEC lawyers will get involved. Texas, if I had to do, we are not doing over under today, but if we did over under 2 years before Texas and Oklahoma are part of the SEC, we're not waiting until 2025 for them to be a part of the SEC. Those lawyers, I mean, you'll have the lawyers of both programs. You'll have the SEC sending all the money in the world to the best lawyers in the world to go find a way to get them out of that contract with the Big 12. That's going to but I don't think they're going to be an immediate factor. LSU is more of an immediate factor or threat right now to Jimbo Fisher because of that. Yeah. But it also has a trickle down effect. If LSU pulls Jimbo from them, it still impacts them in their battle against Texas as far as just the perception. Texas is always going to have the up on them now, especially being in the SEC. But the only thing that can trump that and counter that is on the field success. That's the one thing that Texas A&M has had that Texas has not had over the last decade has been the fact that Texas A&M has been more competitive. They have a better coach right now. Well, Sarkisian has a chance to prove himself, but I'm still giving the lead to Texas A&M as far as the better coach with Jimbo. Recruiting's better, performance is better, rankings are better, and hopefully results are better.
I mean, you can even look at it from this light, like, even though Johnny Manziel was a disaster in the NFL, he still won the Heisman Trophy when he was a freshman at A&M. Like, they've been exciting. Like, Texas hasn't been exciting. No matter how many games Sam Ellinger won and everything like that, they haven't been an exciting program. They've been a disappointing program. So the pendulum is swinging in A&M's favor, and they're trying to make sure they stay on Jimbo's good side to make sure, like, look, man, you're not going, are you? You're not going to leave to go to LSU, are you? You're not going to go home, are you? You're going to stay right here, right? And they gotta win. If they win one, they get themselves a chip, then he'll stick around for a little while. Because, I mean, they're giving him money out the wazoo, man. Good to be Jimbo.
All right, real quick, we'll run down these lists of games for this weekend. Some of the top. I'm not going to go through every game, but the games I'm most intrigued by. Give us a little music. Not by music. Just give us a little music here. There we go. So here's some of the big games in week one of the college football season. We'll start in the Big Ten. Penn State and Wisconsin. Week one action right off the bat. Wisconsin is a 5.5-point favorite. They are the home team. Wisconsin number 12 in the country, Penn State number 19. This is a big one. This has a lot of ramifications for Ohio State as well, because you're talking about Wisconsin. If they have an undefeated run to the Big Ten title game, that's big for Ohio State. That gives them a little bit of a margin of error. If they trip up against Oregon a week from tomorrow, and then you beat an undefeated Wisconsin team in the Big Ten title game, that goes a long way. So this is a big one. Penn State needs to stay top, highly ranked as well, because that's one of the big games on Ohio State's schedule as far as resume is concerned. Wisconsin, Penn State, who are you taking in this one?
I'm going to take Wisconsin. I'm going to go with Wisconsin. Mertz, he's in his second year at Wisconsin as the starting quarterback and everything like that. And we don't even know the running back that's about to run for like 1,700 yards for Wisconsin yet. So whoever he is, he'll run for 1,700 yards. He'll get drafted in the second round in the NFL and then have a good career, just like they all do.
Miami, Florida, of course. Miami, Alabama, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Alabama, the defending national champions, the number one team in the country, 19.5-point favorites over Miami, and that'll be a 3:30 kickoff again from Georgia. Who you have in this one?
Tide. I got the Tide winning by 17. I think it's going to be a little closer than what people are expecting, because everybody expects Alabama to blow everybody out. I think that De'Aaron King keeps it close early on, not only with his legs, but with his arm as well. I was doing some reading about Miami. They're kind of banged up on defense at the linebacker. So I'm not expecting Bryce Young to throw it all over the lot. I'm expecting a lot of run game out of Alabama to take advantage of them having a lot of freshman linebackers out there for the youth.
31-28 the final. It's my upset of the weekend.
Uh-oh.
Miami's beating Alabama.
Uh-oh. Okay.
The U is back, baby. The U is back. The Texas of the ACC right there. Miami and Alabama. Again, Alabama, 19.5-point favorite. How about the Bearcats? Poor little Miami of Ohio. The Bearcats are 22.5-point favorites at home at Nippert again against Miami. 3:30 to kick off tomorrow. Bobby Carpenter is going to be on the call for that, by the way, on ESPN Plus. 22.5-point favorites are the Bearcats. Of course, they're the top 10 team, number 8 in the country. They're coming away with the win. This is the type of game you want to introduce a new, this is a very experienced Bearcats team, by the way. So this is a good one to kind of kick off the season for them.
Oh, man, multiple running backs over 100 yards. Desmond Ritter's probably going to throw for like under 200 yards because they're going to be pounding the ball. They're going to run the ball a lot. Expect something like 38-3.
38-3.
38-3. I think that Fickle's going to grind it out, get out of Dodge. Like, there's no need to be out here trying to put up, extra stats and extra touchdowns, because you remember last year they tried to do that and they fumbled on the goal line in that rainstorm and they almost lost. So, like, I think Fickle is that, at least that's how I would be. I would just be like, look, man, there's no need to try to prove anything here. Let's just go out here and handle our business, especially defensively. Just keep them out the end zone, and we just grind it out on the ground. Like, I just got bad feelings about these type of games, man, where you could try to go out there and prove a little extra and you keep your guys in a little too long and then an injury happens or something like that. I just think about that game last year where they were trying to put up an extra touchdown for, brownie points and everything like that, and they fumbled. And it was like, uh-oh, if they scoop and score, we're going to have a ball game here. So
Texas at home welcomes in Louisiana, top 25 showdown. Texas number 21 in the country, Louisiana number 23. Texas a 9-point favorite. They're riding high. They feel good about themselves. They're doing the Vince McMahon walk into the Southeastern Conference. Can all their joy be destroyed in week 1 of the college football season? Does Louisiana pull off the upset? Texas only a 9-point favorite at home.
Well, Louisiana had the upset of last season. They beat your team, Iowa State. I know how much you love their coach.
Come on, Campbell, you're better than that.
They beat Iowa State to kick off last season and everything like that. I'm picking Louisiana to beat the Big 12 again, back-to-back years. I got Louisiana beating Texas. They're out there starting a freshman quarterback after a guy that started like 7 games last year. Sarkisian is pulling in with his guys. It's my guys. I'm getting that type of vibe. It's my guys versus the old guys. So that can cause some dissension on a team if things don't go the right way. And Louisiana ain't no pushover.
Game of the weekend, Clemson, Georgia. Bank of America Stadium, Clemson welcoming in Georgia in the Dukes Mayo Classic. Clemson is a 3-point favorite. The home team, number 3 Clemson versus number 5 Georgia. Who you have in this one? For me, this is a bigger game for Clemson than Georgia. If Clemson loses this, they don't have enough quality games on their schedule to be able to possibly give them the benefit of the doubt when it's all said and done by the end of the year. Georgia can lose to Clemson and still get wins over LSU, still get wins over top teams in the SEC, even potentially over Alabama in the SEC title game. They will have their margin for error is not as small as that of Clemson's. Georgia can afford to lose this game. I don't think they're going to. Clemson has to win this game, though. This is a playoff. Don't bore me anymore with a 12-team playoff conversation. This is a playoff game that is happening in September as opposed to waiting until later in November to get to it. It's a playoff game. It's a big one. I'm taking Clemson in this one because they're more desperate for it. Georgia wants it. They're a very good team. I'm high on Georgia this year, but DJ Uiagalelei, this is a huge opportunity for him. I have Clemson over Georgia in a close one, like Clemson, a 3-point favorite, 27-24 Clemson over Georgia.
I got Clemson as well for this point. I've been nerding out a lot, trying to get all my information in before I make my college football picks with my brother and everything like that. Georgia is banged up at the offensive line. And the best part about Clemson's defense is their defensive line. As we know, all games are won in the trenches. If you can't run the ball the way that Georgia wants to run the ball with James Cook and Zaire White, you're not going to be able to beat them because Clemson's going to score points. They may not score, 40 and 30 against Georgia's defense, but they're going to score in the low 20s, mid 20s and everything like that. Can Georgia do enough to score with Clemson? You also got to think their receiving core is banged up as well. James Pickens, he got hurt in that game last year versus UC. So it's a lot of injuries that Georgia's dealing with right now. So I'm going to go with Clemson and by 10.
All right, when they have 2 minutes remaining for this one, this is a sneaky big game this weekend. This game is a humongous game for the conference of the Pac-12. The Pac-12's playoff chances are riding on this one right here. Chip Kelly and UCLA looked very good in UCLA's first game of the season. They're 1-0. It'll be LSU's season opener. It's at the Rose Bowl. UCLA welcomes in number 16 LSU. This is a huge game. UCLA, this is a must-win game for them. It's a must-win game for the Pac-12. I think that this is going to be a good. It's 8:30 kickoff. This is one of my big games I'm pumped for this weekend. I think UCLA gets it. I'm pulling for UCLA because I need the Pac-12 to have a team that looks the part. And they kicked the crap out of a bad team in week 0. Looking forward to seeing what they do against a top 25 team in LSU. And UCLA has LSU in town. I'm picking it UCLA in this one. LSU is a 2.5-point favorite, so it's basically a toss-up at this point. But I'm going to go with UCLA at home. I think that they put the world on notice. I think they put the college football world on notice that finally the Pac-12 has a team that is ready to compete for the college football playoff. We'll see.
I want to pick UCLA so bad, but I can't do it. I can't do it. I think LSU is going to win this game. I know that UCLA smashed Hawaii last week, 44-14, something like that. They put a beat down on them. But it was the defense, really. It wasn't the offense putting up a ton of yards and a ton of splash plays. The quarterback, Thompson, he was okay for UCLA. He was only like 50% completion percentage. He really didn't run the ball. Maybe they were being extra vanilla because it was Hawaii and everything like that. But I just think that LSU is going to get them in the end. I think that it's going to be a tight game, but I think ultimately LSU wins the game.
All right, then. Look, it's a big weekend. I'm so happy that college football season's officially here. And a week from today, we'll be doing this for week 1 of the
No week 0 in the NFL?
A week from today, I get to give you my prediction for the Bengals, which will be a loss. But I'll give you my score. Bengals fans enjoy the cockiness of the run, but over a week from now, reality kicks in. That's the thing. All right, we'll be back. Hour 3 coming up. Let's talk a little high school football. College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and myself. We're going to be at Kettering Fairmont tonight. Fairmont welcomes in CJ in our week 3 Glacier Softwater High School Football Game of the Week. Hour 3 next.